from your perspective, what are the odds of that?
Look, it's impossible to know because as you have been following the story, every other day, Donald Trump says something completely different about whether he's going to send some folks in or not. Obviously, the decision of the judge last week in LA, I think, was a significant setback. It's been very clear, though, that leaders here, not just the Democratic elected officials, but the business community has great concerns about sending in a National Guard and what that will do to Chicago. Right now, we are experiencing record lows in shootings and homicides. But let's be clear, this has nothing to do with violence. And we heard that from Donald Trump himself. The more he opens his mouth, the better the lawsuit will be against him. But this is clearly playing to his base, wanting to wave the flag of his power, his tyranny, his dominance. And it's really about ICE raids. It has nothing to do with violence in the city of Chicago. Look, he tried this in 2020. He went into Portland and almost destroyed the city entirely. And cities like Chicago, and I was mayor at the time, we sent him a letter, said, look, if you want to help on issues of violence, help us with the stream of illegal guns that pour into our city. Send us more prosecutors, send us more agents, set up interstate gun trafficking task forces. There are a number of things that the federal government is uniquely qualified to do if there's a seriousness, a purpose about addressing gun violence. There's not. And so he's not talking about any of those things because it has nothing to do with violence. And I don't want to operate under the premise that, oh, we should send in a National Guard because Chicago's out of control. That's nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to ask you, Mayor, about the way our mayor here in Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, has handled this situation, noting that the federal city is a very different situation legally than the city of Chicago. But she's decided to play a little bit of judo here and in fact, kind of move in the same direction as the president, thanking him for the help, saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, we like to have lower crime. But she's also found opportunities to draw lines, for instance, when he attempted to federalize the police department. How would you advise the current mayor of Chicago on working with, if I can use that expression, the administration in a way that might protect the people of Chicago?
Well, look, I'm going to pick up on the point that you made. Washington, D.C. is very, very different in terms of its relationship with the federal government than the city of Chicago, the city of Boston, Baltimore. Very, very different. And Muriel Bowser, who I consider a friend, I think really has to walk a very fine line. But let's start with the premise that the same people who want to come in and have sent the National Guard into D.C. cut the D.C. budget by $1 billion. She's got limited options, and I think she's playing the cards that she's been dealt very well, but it's a very different situation here. As I said before, we cooperate with the federal government on a regular basis, particularly our police department. For decades, Chicago police officers have been part of federal task forces, whether it's with the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and so forth. That work continues. But what the difference is, you don't go into a place that doesn't want you. You don't go in and force resources that aren't needed. The federal government is uniquely qualified to do a number of things. It could be doing those things if there was a seriousness, a purpose about helping us address the illegal gun problem that we do have here in Chicago, because it's pouring over the border from other states, namely Indiana, Mississippi. The federal government could set up resources like task forces, like more prosecutors, like more agents, and expand the footprint of the ATF. But all you have to do is look at, this is not serious. They've proposed to cut the budget of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms by 50%. They're cutting the number of agents. They're cutting the number of inspectors whose responsibility it is to hold these federal gun dealers responsible and make sure they're not selling to straw purchasers. You don't do all of those things if you're actually serious about addressing gun violence in a city like Chicago or anywhere across the country. We're not seeing that because this is not about violence. It's about exercise of power. It's about exercise of control. And frankly, the chaos and the threats is also part of it. People here in this city are scared. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's unfortunate and frankly shameful that the federal government is so cavalier, and particularly at the presidential level, who's got the largest bully pulpit of anyone in the world, to just blindly be saying, yeah, we're going to go in, we're going to do this. I'm sure you saw the social media post equating himself to the general in Apocalypse Now. I mean, this isn't a serious person.
Mayor Lightfoot, if we do get to that reality where you do see a National Guard enter Chicago, what can the city of Chicago actually do? Is there a scenario where we see two factions of law enforcement, one taking orders from the president, the other from the governor?
Well, my hope is that if the National Guard were to come, and I'm still holding out hope that that's not going to happen, but if the National Guard does come over the opposition of the governor and the mayor, I think the first thing that we're going to see is a lawsuit filed in federal court asking the court to stop the federal government from violating longstanding acts, namely the Posse Comitatus Act. You can't do this, and because there's no emergency, you can't militarize the National Guard against U.S. residents, U.S. citizens. There's no legal basis for that to happen. And as I said at the outset, the more the president talks and reveals his true motive in making these threats, the stronger the case gets against him to stop this from happening. I would also hope that if there's an action taken, there's coordination with the Chicago Police Department, the state police, and the other law enforcement that is routinely involved in law enforcement activities in the city of Chicago.